Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, everyone had a good night's rest and a good day yesterday. Um, Today's topic is going to be um, a little somber, I guess, in a lot of ways. Um, the concept of lamenting and its value, its necessity, and its history with the Bible. So, we're going to cover a couple of things here. Um, First off, we want to get the definition, okay, just at least a modern day man's definition of lamenting. Okay. Lament, to express grief for or about, to mourn, to regret deeply, deplore, to grieve audibly, or wail. Now, a lot of modern day, and I mean modern from about 1910, 1920, somewhere in there. The concept of repenting or acknowledging one's sin um, started to take on a very superficial and surface like expression. Um, oh, I know I'm a sinner and I'm in need of grace. That's the extent of our seeing of ourselves. We're sinners. And thank God we have a Savior. The problem that brought about was that you don't really see what you deserved. We kind of minimize our state before Christ. And when we enter into that relationship with Christ, we end up seeing ourselves as being worthy because we weren't that bad anyway. We weren't this, we weren't that, we weren't really extreme, and so you end up minimizing your state. Hence, you minimize the reason for Christ coming. And I know people will say, well, that's not true. That's not true. Well, let's take a look at some things. How else can you explain the modern day preachers um, that tell you that you are worthy of salvation? But they don't mean it as though you're worthy because of, you are worthy. Hence, Christ did. Not because of. The reason he did was because you are worthy of salvation. A lot of believers bypass lamenting, sorrow, regret, acknowledging your space, acknowledging what you did, acknowledging who you are, acknowledging your fall, period. Acknowledging the gravity of where you were as to why it's vital we take his view in the blood, not as you are. His view of you as worthy is not prior to the blood, it's after the blood. We want to say that everyone is worthy. No, 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 no. You are worthy once you enter the blood. You are given access to the blood. Everyone is welcome to participate in, but your worthiness is only in there, not outside of. Don't give me this crap about everyone's worthy. No, everyone is not worthy. Everyone that is in and covered by the blood of Christ, that's where you're worthy at, not before then, in any way, shape, form, or fashion. You are offered, because of mercy, the opportunity to be worthy. You are given via mercy the opportunity to be worthy. But we want to see it as though we are worthy of the cross. Completely backwards. Completely backwards. Is mercy when God holds back the things you deserve, like death, and grace is when God gives you the things you don't deserve? Um, that is it's a complex question only because I don't know from what aspect you're coming, but I'll tell you the aspect I read it from. Is mercy when God holds back the things you deserve, like death? He doesn't hold it back. He removes it if you're in the blood of Christ. If you are in the kingdom, there's no holding it back because it never comes forth. It's removed. So, yes, that is indeed mercy. But it's not that he's having mercy on your soul for your sake. Grace is when he gives you things you don't deserve. I don't consider grace in the giving department. Um, Grace is offered, and it's something I take. But you can also abuse grace. It even says so. Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? So there is a very fine line I don't want to walk with the getting and the receiving of things simply for the merit of doing it to get that. Knowing, and this is part of the whole lesson today. So the grieving of my state makes the cross that much more recognizable as a need, therefore making my next step to enter into that covenant with him more necessary. It is also a grace for us to see our state. It is both grace and mercy for us to see our state before God prior to. And then it is also the other side of grace and mercy to allow us in. But I think a lot of people look at grace and mercy as a fail safe as opposed to an entry point. When you enter and you're covered with grace and mercy, you do everything in your power to not sully it. Meanwhile, some people see grace and mercy as something as they go and take as a safety deposit thing. Oh, I did something. Oh, I have grace for that. Oh, I did something. He has mercy on me. Oh, I did something. He has grace on that. That kind of stuff. Whereas the true acknowledgement of mercy and grace, by its own nature, will prohibit you from partaking in certain things to abuse grace and mercy. So there are two different views you can use on that. And of course, one's more um, abusive than the other. Hence why the reason for lament is so necessary. Throughout the Old Testament, there have been multiple prophets that spoke um, about lamenting, this mourning over the sin, the separations, the wrongdoings, the state of the community. They've mourned over multiple things. David has multiple psalms where he is crying out, lamenting. One of the more potent ones was in Psalm 22, which is the same one that Jesus quoted. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me? And the words from my groaning Oh my God, I cry in the daytime, but you do not hear, and in the night season, and I'm not silent. But you are holy, enthroned in praises of Israel. Our fathers trusted in you. They trusted, and you delivered them. They cried to you and were delivered. They trusted in you and were not ashamed. But I am a worm and no man, a reproach of men and despised by the people. And all those who see me ridicule me. They shoot out the lip. They shake their heads, saying, he trusted in the Lord. Let him rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. But you are he who took me out of the womb. You made me trust while at my mother's breast. I was cast upon you from birth, from my mother's womb. You have been my God, not far from me. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, for there is no one to help. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, it is melted within me. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue clings to my jaw. You have brought me to the dust of death. And he goes on and on. And then in 19, he says, but you, O Lord, do not be far from me. O my strength, hasten to help. Deliver me from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dog. Save me from the lion's mouth and from the horns of the wild oxen. You have answered me. I will declare your name to my brethren. There is a sequence to lament. There's a process to lamenting. Lamenting ushers you into seeing your true state before God. So many of you might be going through some stuff right now, okay? Some heavy things that you can't talk to anyone really about, or that you don't feel you could talk to anybody about, or you don't want to talk to anybody about. Things that are so weighing on you that you don't want to work, you don't want to eat, you don't want to hang out with nobody, you don't want to be around people. You want to be by yourself. You're isolating. And I just recently had a conversation with somebody about this. Everything seems to be going completely wrong, upside down, inside out. And you just want to end. You just want it over. You would much rather be dead than to deal with the life you've got. Say you're in that space. Multiple times David had been in that space. Multiple times Israel was in that space. The one thing that David did throughout his lamenting, even in that Psalms 22, he still acknowledged who God was. He still acknowledged every quality about God. He was never to the point of saying anything adverse about God's nature. In 22, he starts off by saying, why you forsake me, blah, blah, and then he goes to, but you are holy, enthroned in the praises of Israel. He just finished saying, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me? And straightway goes into, in 2 verses time, he goes into, but you are holy. What is the one difference between lamenting and dying and lamenting and living? Lamenting and living brings the acknowledgement that God is still who he is, regardless of your situation. Now, the human condition will blame God. You allowed this to happen. It was all your fault. I did this too. I've said this. If you didn't want it to happen, this would never happen. So if it's happening, it's obvious that you want this to happen. You know why we say stuff like that? Because we genuinely believe we're worthy. Most people that do that genuinely believe that they were not that bad before Christ. But when you understand who you are before Him, you still acknowledge what and who He is. Our biggest thing is that we think somehow, as long as we didn't do X, Y, and Z as a sin, we didn't really have that much to be forgiven of, which means we have a different level of salvation than the others. I dare tell you that it's not your action that brought condemnation and hell upon you. No level of action or inaction dictates your spot in hell. Your location does. You can't do more to get to hell, and you can't do less to get out of hell. It's either you're going or you ain't going. It's not a there's not a tier system. Okay. Oh man. At least I'll be above Hitler in hell. That's good. Hey, I'm not going to be Jeffrey Dahmer in hell. I'm not going to be this person in hell. I'll be a little bit because I didn't do that bad. I just didn't follow Christ, and so I don't think I'll be necessarily even that burnt. I might get some of the heat, but I ain't gonna burn. No, I don't want you there. You're there. Your position where you are placed is what dictates it, not your action. Your state before Jesus came was one that deserved death, period, regardless of how many things you did or didn't do, period. After Christ gave his life, the options are this: be seen in the blood or not. There is no other option for you. There's not a third, there's not a fourth, it's just two. You're in or you're out. To get in, though, you have to recognize that you're out. You have to recognize that being out means that you're in a certain state. The most efficient way is lamenting. You can't really get to that level of lamenting until you are seeing it for yourself. The best way to see it for yourself is to have an encounter. The best way to have an encounter is to invite one. Invite one. Angela seemed to have a question. Let me see if I get this right. Um, I'll let you guys handle that one. I'll address it in a minute. But believers today have a basic problem, okay? Before the health and wealth gospel came about, we were told that being a believer was going to alleviate a lot of troubles, that you would get a refreshed view of life and that you'd be happier. Things would go better. And I don't know where that really came from. Like, I don't even know where that was listed anywhere in the book to begin with. I mean, I could understand maybe your viewpoint about troubles might change. I get that. But troubles don't go away. If anything, they get exponentially worse. You just have a way to handle it. So I don't know where exactly that came from. But I think that that whole idea of God giving you an easier life when you believe in him came out as a result of man wanting to have more respect than they think they deserve. Like, God loves you so much that he will give you peace and joy and happiness and all of that stuff. And you'll never have problems again because you are so awesome because you picked him. The reason I don't see how you can come up with that because he guarantees you the opposite. He promised you death. He promised you trials. He promised you condemnation from people. He promised you to be ostracized. He promised you all of that stuff. Where he did promise you peace, joy, was in him, just the knowledge of him. That was where you find it, not in circumstance, because he knows that circumstances will pop up. It even says, consider it pure joy when you endure trials of various kinds. It's to test your faith. Hence, lamenting. I mourn my position. I mourn my case right now. I am mourning the fact that I'm in this, but I deeply regret this position, but I'm wailing right now, but David threw that in right away, but you are holy. And then goes back to his acknowledgement of who he is. I'm a worm. Then he continues to lament his positioning. Then he says, I declare your name to my brethren in the midst of the assembly. I will praise you. You who fear the Lord, praise him. David may have mourned, David may have lamented, Joel may have mourned and lamented, Isaiah may have done it, Hosea did it, Samuel did it. Multiple great men of faith lamented, states of being, lamented positions, lamented what was going on. They never forgot who God was. Our problem is like we move away from the acknowledgement of God because of our circumstance. We, unlike David, would say, why is this happening to me? Where are you? I just want to die. I wish this was so much different. Please answer me. Do something. And we leave it right there. Why me? What did I do? And leave it right there. Why is this happening? Please remove this. Jesus in the garden said, not my will, but yours. You're supposed to be emulating him, right? That's what you say. The acknowledgement of the situation, the acknowledgement of where the power lies, the acknowledgement of the head of all. Lament, praise are like this. Lament and praise are like this. They're not. You lament all you want your situation. David went into chapters upon chapters lamenting. And every time he lamented, he remembered who God was. Most today don't want to do that. They love to lament. They love to sit and wallow and be angry and be hurt, but they forget the who in spite of, which is the test of faith. That's the actual test. The actual test of faith is to see if you can go into the trouble that you're in and still remain praising him there. When you realize that the travails of earth are just that they do not exist in the spirit world, the better off you'll be. They simply don't exist there. Simply because God doesn't change. If God doesn't change, then no matter what you're going through, it does not win. That is regardless of the earthly outcome. That's regardless of the physical outcome, the foreseeable outcome, the possible. None of that matters because he doesn't change. None of our situation dictates his faithfulness, his steadfastness, or his power. None of it. None of it. But a lot of times we hinge our bets on what we can see, and then we make a stupid assertion that God is the same as what we assume is going on. Do you remember when David said, search me? If you remember that, in 139, right? He said, oh Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. Then at the end of it, he says, search me again, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxieties. See if there's any wicked way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. That's in 139. Throughout 139, he laments, oh, that you would slay the wicked. Where can I flee from your spirit? This is lamenting. This is him seeing a state of mind that he's in, crying out. And even in the midst of crying out, he still understood. Listen to me. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? And he goes, he's like, he tells everything about what his mind's going through. And then he says, you have formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works. That my soul knows very well. He does not ever stop acknowledging the qualities of an unchangeable God. Regardless of where his mental state might be, he never gives into the mental state to where it overtakes the reality of who God is. Never once. Because that doesn't change. Then he acknowledges the power by telling everyone he will search me, and any wickedness he finds, he will lead out. People say don't ask God for certain things, right? Because you don't really want you may not want the way he applies that learning. And pray for patience. He'll give you something to test your patience, kind of thing, you know? I think we ought to do that more. If you really want growth, if you really want growth, pray for the one thing that you think that you'll never get and see what happens. I don't mean in terms of stuff. That's where you're wrong, Monica. I'll read your statement and then I'll break it down why you're wrong. It is said that God loves us way more than we love our kids. I don't know where that statement even came from, but I, I mean, I don't think it's in the Bible, but maybe I might be wrong. Remember, I'm not a scholar. If my son went to hell because I failed to teach him, then that is my sin, not his, and I can't believe he loved my son more than I did. Um, God's love does not have tears. Tiers. It doesn't have levels. It just is. His love just is. Your sin of not teaching your child about God, one has to first resemble the thing they're teaching for it to be taught. So if you weren't even existing in that position, I don't know how you could share that, which means that you were never to begin with in God's grace anyway to impart God's grace to anyone. Okay? Now your son's of age where he can and will see the movement of God, but will choose to ignore it or choose to follow it. After that age of reasoning, his sins are his sins. Just understand that you're not some sacrificial lamb where he puts his hand on your head and somehow you take the sin. That's not how this works. Like ever. He has his own road to walk. You have yours. Whatever you may have done in his growing up may have influenced, but like we said, God does not change. The requirement he has on you is the same he has on your son. Even if you were to impart that gift of the knowledge of God upon him and he decided to step away, would you consider that your sin too? You can't consider that your sin. He does what he does and you do what you do. Your only chore from here on is to hand over what you think is control. You no longer have any power over your son. Get over that. Just dump it from your brain. That ain't your problem no more. You could have never saved him anyway. It was never your role. It was never your chore to save your son. You never could do it. No matter how good of a Christian you were not going to save your son. The most you could do was be an example. That's the most. No amount of love you could offer your child will save your child. That's a God job, not yours. In either position, in either position, he has to take that step into the kingdom or not take the step into the kingdom, no matter how much you impart. If he does not acknowledge his place before God, none of it matters. None of it matters. You could have been the most excellent example. You could preach to him all day, but if he does not accept that gift, it doesn't matter. He'll still die and go to hell, regardless of how good you did. Our job individually is to see our state, acknowledge it, and die to self. That's our job. You cannot save people. You never were able to save anyone. The only option you have is to direct them to the door. They have to go through, not you, for them, on behalf of them. No. Lament your own sin. Lament on behalf of someone, but it does not make them do anything. You know the old saying, lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink? Same premise. When the horse is thirsty enough, it'll drink. It'll drink. Can't coerce it, can't force it. But sometimes we feel we can. Sometimes we feel we can. And you know what that leads to when something doesn't happen? Anger. I thought I was faithful, and why wouldn't you? And I was faithful to you the whole time. Why wouldn't you? Did we not prophesy in your name? Did we? Did we? It wasn't about you, clown. It was never about you. Why do you think? Why do you think that happened? Why do you think he's saying that will happen? That there'll be many that say, did we not do this in your name? Did we not? Because you thought it was about you. You thought the things you were doing was about you. It's not. One thing here I want to address. Hang on 1 second. Okay, let's get this one here. I'm gonna get this, and I want to make sure I answer this fully, so I'm making sure I grab this here. Okay, this statement here. Where is it here? If I can find it. It was. Okay, this one. Okay. That's technically all we're asked to do. Baseline. That's our baseline request. And then If you don't water, it will die. And then, better yet, plant the seed and let God water it. Um, in First Corinthians chapter 3, it says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. So then neither he who plants is anything, nor he who waters, but God who gives the increase. Now he who plants and he who waters are one, and each will receive his own reward according to his own labor. You always have seeds to plant. You always have seeds to plant. There is always a seed to plant. It may not be a godly seed, but there's always a seed to plant. And again, Monica, and this is me trying. I'm trying to help you out here. Okay, the longer you stay in the was, the less time you spend in Him. You keep staying in the was, keep hanging out there, and tell God that the sacrifice He made for your soul is inconsequential because of the past. I don't know how else to tell you, but this is exactly what you're telling Him. This is what you're telling Him. I'm going to put it as frank as I can put it for you. Here it is. Okay. You might as well, if you want to hold on to what you did, you might as well go right now and pray and say this to Him. Whatever you did on the cross, one, wasn't strong enough, and two, ain't never going to help me. It was better that you never died on that cross, and I don't ever want to hear about your sacrifice ever again. You might as well do that. Because whether you believe it or not, that's where your mind is. That's where your mind is. You don't have a full grasp of what He did, nor of who He is. If you can continually dwell on what you've done, it means that you haven't left it, which means you have never really surrendered it to the cross, which means the cross has no power, and you might as well negate it all in your life. Just grab the bull by the horn and toss God out your life. Just do it. The more you dwell on what was, when He says it's no more, is telling Him that He is not powerful. He ain't God. He ain't God. It's a harsh thing to get and grasp of, but it's where you are. I, I don't care how much of a mother or a father or of anything that cap you are to your kid. If you're being okay, look at this. You're being exactly what your son is being. What your son is to you, you are being to God. You're the rebellious child. You're no better off than your son. Leave that stuff. If you said that you've put Christ on, then that no longer applies. The things you might have done, the people you may have led astray, if He says that He forgave those things, then let them be forgiven. For crying out loud, let them be. Hand them off. Just be done. It's done. It is gone. Whatever you did is forgiven. which means, by all intents and purposes, everyone else that you affected is now under the care of Him, God. He will take care of that, not you. It is no longer yours to bear at all. Like, at all. Either He is or He isn't who He says He is. And either you acknowledge it or you don't. You got to pick one. Pick one. Tomorrow, we're going to tackle the age of reasoning. What exactly that is. We'll tackle what that is. Um, I don't have a Friday topic yet. I think I might, but I don't know yet for sure. But I should know by tomorrow. But tomorrow, age of reasoning. Um, you're welcome, Monica. Um, Savage Patriots today. We're going to be tackling what Harry Belafonte said during a forum with Obama and Hillary about the DNC. Very interesting statements he made. And so we'll be talking about that and going through what exactly the DNC has done for the people that Belafonte was talking about. And then tonight we have a show for Too Strong. In case you guys are wondering, we are live tonight. And tonight is the topic of white hate. So it'll be a good discussion. Please join it anyway. If you don't think it's going to be something that you could learn from, just join anyway. Give us your 2 cents as to why it's not educational. Um, emails are to be here if you have an email sent. For those of you who have ordered stuff, thank you. I did add the purse. We'll see how that goes. But so far, so good. Thank you for if you use them. That's good stuff. Here's a P.O. box. I will be adding a blog this weekend on there, so take a look out for that. On the website, I mean. And like I said, the website listed on my YouTube page in the About section. Okay. And that should be about it. Jojo. Dodgers email I sent. I'm assuming you're supposed to type, did you get? I'm going to assume that was, did you get the email I sent? On the Dodgers info. Yes, I did get that yesterday. And Corey and I watched that, and we could only make it through about a couple of seconds of that stuff, but we will be talking about it. And I may even talk about it on Straight Talk next week. I just don't even know how yeah. That was wow. That was a wow. That was a wow. Very wow. Man, wow. Yeah. Anyway, when you guys see it, you'll understand why my reaction is like this. It was messed up. Very messed up. Like if lightning struck at that point, I wouldn't be surprised, and I'd probably just breathe a sigh of relief. That's the level. So anyway, so that's the agenda this week. Hopefully you guys will be here for it. We will we'll catch up. Yeah, that's the whole reason I grew the hair out to begin with. Okay, so I had it low, if you guys remember, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going thin, and I decided to grow it out to see if I could still grow my hair. That's why I had the fro. I wasn't like wanting a fro. I wanted to test. So I tested it. It passed, and I can go back to my regular haircuts now. So there you go. Now you know. Yeah, it's already coming back pretty quickly. Yeah. Yeah. So I got to get on top of it is what I need to do. In any case, thank you guys for coming. See you guys in the morning on the next episode of Straight Talk. Wisdom calls to you from the streets. So please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself.